Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay hosted, all inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Well, hello, everybody. This is Holden back here again with the Sober Unicorn. I hope you're having an incredible day. And if you're not, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at the Sober Unicorn or to any one of our guests that have dropped their social media and everything in the description of the episode. So today we are being joined by Dallas. Hello, Dallas.
Hello,
How are you doing
Holden.
today?
I'm doing very well. Very well.
Good, good.
Thank
So Dallas and I actually met via Instagram. We've been following each other, I think, like a couple months now, and just we
you.
reached out to each other to have you on. I know your experience is somewhat similar to mine when it comes to drugs of choice and stuff like that. So I wanted to bring you on to share where you're at, how your recovery's been going, and kind of what got you into recovery. So why don't you kind of tell everybody who you are, give them a little backstory about yourself.
Okay, sure. Dallas Bragg, I'm 46. I have two adult children now. I was living kind of an American dream life. I was married, two kids, just about to get my doctorate degree, and but I was also internally in turmoil because I, was gay, and just at one point, that's another long story, but finally decided to come to terms with that and divorced very quickly, had 50% custody of the kids, and then thinking that this was the answer to all of my shame and my trauma and all of my issues. I thought, that being gay would solve that. It didn't. If anything, it exasperated it, a lot of the shame and not feeling belong like I belong anywhere and that kind of thing. So at 39 years old, I found crystal meth through a grinder hookup. I didn't know what partying was. I thought he was having a cookout. It was like Sunday at 10 a.m. But so anyway, I got into that and fell really quickly. And within 3 years, I lost the kids and my job and my car and my house. And so I was homeless for a little while and have now, it's been August 4th will be 5 years sober.
That's absolutely incredible. I know, like, a lot of people listening. I mean, if you are gay, you are most likely familiar with what party culture is. But for anybody that is unfamiliar with it, um, I mean, many people in the gay community use the term party with a capital T to discuss the use of crystal meth, or otherwise known as PNP, which is party and play, which means let's get high as hell and have crazy, insane sex. So PNP culture, it seems to be kind of taking over the gay community.
Yes.
So do you find that, like, trying to experience any type of hookup is almost impossible now, trying to avoid and navigate through PNP?
Well, to be honest, I had to get rid of Grinder if I was going to recover. It's just too easy. And it's people, the general public just, I don't think, realizes just how prolific it is. I mean, you can literally be anywhere, I think, in the country, maybe the world, and get on Grinder and find a crystal meth party within an hour, right? And so I just had to take that part out of my life. However, um, I can also got to the point where I could tell through the way the person was communicating that they were partying. I mean, there's just a certain way. There's a big delay in response. The typing was off. You could just tell that they were probably partying, and so uh, I could weed that out pretty quickly if they were on another app. But so I think for me, before the meth addiction, I also had a sex addiction, and so the hookups had to stop for me because even without crystal meth, one hookup wasn't enough, and then it didn't go far enough, and then it had to be in public, and then it had to be even more public. It was just addiction. It was just this dopamine rush and this feeling of, oh, this person's interested in me. Oh, and now this person's interested in me, and they look better. It was never ending for me. So that was what I had to address after I got rid of meth.
Yeah, I remember telling my therapist one time that when I did meth that I called it homo, where I kind of went into this like blackout period where one was never enough ever.
Right. Yeah,
And in a weekend time, I would end up sleeping with 20 to 30 different men,
yeah,
all completely unprotected,
yeah,
never questioning the other person's sexual health or STD status,
yeah,
um, because I had to get that fix. And if I didn't, and Grinder, crazy enough, is people, let's say, Grinder is a place for a lot of craziness to happen. And I was blocked from Grinder. Like,
yeah.
Grinder had gotten the IP of my phone and literally blocked me to where it was maybe about 2 years into my using. I guess I was high and messaged way too many people.
Yeah.
Um, and I got too many red flags. So, I mean, it was kind of a
Yeah,
blessing in disguise because, as you
yeah,
said, it's within an hour's time. Um, I could find a meth dealer, I could find somebody doing it that had supplies. And so
yeah,
it was too easy. I mean, I've gotten a new phone since, and I've attempted to get on Grinder, and within 10 to 15 minutes of somebody hitting me up, I asked GPNP,
yeah,
and they're like, "Oh yeah, of course," and I'm like, "Oh well, great, here we go again." So it's like I know for where I'm at in my recovery that I have to avoid that. So what
yeah,
what was kind of like the final breaking point to be like, okay, I have to get clean.
yeah. Well, speaking of chaos, I mean that my life gradually just got way out of hand, but it was when I started using needles that I spiraled, and then I got addicted to shoplifting because I had lost my job. How else was I to get money? And so I paired up with two other guys, and the sex went away. It was funny. It was a sex drug, but hardly ever sex was ever happening for the last, I don't know, year and a half. But we would start the day at $0, and how could we steal? What could we do to get enough money for drugs and possibly food as a second priority? Um, it was just crazy. It was just a crazy, crazy life. And um, the friends left me. On the side of the road once. And I, again, was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go. The police was after me too, by the way, because I had hacked into someone's Hilton Honors report program to get in as a hotel room, and they had reported me to the police. Um, and so when I got to the hotel, the police showed up. Anyway, was running through the woods and people's yards and all this kind of stuff, and I just finally, after a couple of days of being under this tree and being so far out, I just called my mom. I did have a phone. She bought enough to pay for my phone, so she would have some way to always contact me. And I have to do something. And so I also had an APB out for my arrest because I didn't show up for court. I was arrested 4 times. So I ended up turning myself in and spent some time in jail. And no one, including my mom, would pick me up because it was like, enough's enough. But my kids came. My kids showed up. Um, and they picked me up from jail and we went out to a park. And they just they're in the meantime their mother had started to fall into an addiction, and they just said to me, we have to have a parent. We are home alone. Like, we need you. So you're going to have to decide, if is it going to be us or is it going to be this drug? And I just made the decision. That was that day. I was like, that's it. I have to, I can't. I have nothing else anyway, and I have my children standing in front of me asking me to be their dad. And so that's when I decided that was the rock bottom, and that's when I started working my way up. I went to drug court, so I had to be sober for 18 years. I mean, 18 months. Sorry. Um, I did a drug test about 4 to 5 times a week. I had to go to rehab. I had to report to different my probation officer and different people. And so for 18 months, I was forced to be sober. But in that 18 months, I started to see what my life
So, I mean, how old were your kids when they had to come rescue you from jail?
could be like. So my daughter, I guess, was 16. So she was driving 16 and 14.
Oh my goodness. So they weren't even like young adult, I mean, adults at this point.
No,
So
no, they weren't.
how's your relationship with your kids blossomed over the fact of like them coming to rescue you, them seeing you kind of at your lowest to now where you're at today?
Well, we have become probably closer than any parent-child relationship that I've noticed, just because we have seen such raw intensity situations, and we've been through, losing the house and the car. I'm supposed to take my kids to school. My son comes in and says, "Your car's gone." You know, I mean, the things that they've seen, and then all the men in and out, of the house. Because at first it was, I had them every other week. So I was only going to use every other weekend. And then that started bleeding into some during the week. And then that started bleeding into other times. And then I was just using every day. And so, the kids, I kept my door locked so they never saw it being used, but they knew something was going on. I mean, there were people there all the time. So I think seeing all that just forced them to just grow up really quickly and mature. But also, you know, that we together, the three of us, worked on rebuilding because we all had to rebuild our lives. I destroyed it all. I, took the rug out from under all of us. So we all pitched in and rebuilt our life, and we got a house together, and they finished school, and now they're doing extremely well. But in that process, we were able to be extremely open and serious, and had and we established an honesty pact. That if wherever I was telling them, and the same with them, and the fact that we just became almost like a three best friends almost. And we had to be that way to because all of us wanted our lives back.
No, 100%. I think that's incredible to see children so young to be supportive of their father, especially you were married, came out as gay. So of course that was the first thing that they had to accept from you, and then of course the addiction. But I mean, as you said, they're doing well now. You're doing extremely well now. So it's insane that y'all kind of at such a young age they were able to help kind of parent you to get
They did.
yourself to a better you until you could go back to being father to them. So your recovery has been slightly different than mine has. So, and recently we've had a lot of people in programs, I would say, on the podcast. So, kind of like, I know there's so many different ways to get clean and sober. So, why don't you tell, like,
Hmm.
how did you do it?
Yeah. So again, the first 18 months I had to be, and then I was released into the wild per se. Um, and I tried different programs and different things, and nothing was sticking with me. Just didn't feel right. And I started to really panic because I also, I got addicted to in the first 18 months, I got addicted to rebuilding my life. I got addicted to the mission, you know. And once I had the job and the car and the house, and then my charges were dropped, and then my charges were expunged. Um, and then I looked around and life was normal. And I'm standing at the sink about to wash the dishes, and I'm like, ugh, this is fucking boring now. And I picked up my phone because the first thing I wanted to do was like, I'm gonna use. I don't have a drug test coming up. I don't have anyone. And so I went to a cacao ceremony and breathing ceremony. And it's just raw cacao beans. Drink it raw and you do some breathing. And the lady there and I just hit it off so well. And she ended up inviting me to an ayahuasca retreat. And I said, why not? I'm all for it. I've been looking into kind of spiritual stuff anyway. I was veering over to um, using spirituality in my recovery because I was doing some past life regressions and I was looking at trauma from and doing some inner child work and different things like that. And so it just fit right in with that. But that in that weekend ceremony, I just became something happened where the veil over my eyes and whatever was blocking me from wanting to be sober just kind of disintegrated because it all fell into feeling a love for myself that I hadn't felt ever and feeling connected. Like I felt connected to the earth, but I also felt connected to everyone there and I felt connected to myself finally. And I realized, and I've heard this phrase said that the opposite of addiction is connection. But I realized I had never felt connected. You know, I'd always felt rejected by my parents and my family and my school and this and that and the world and then the gay community, you know, and then of course in the meth community I was rejected a lot if I didn't have the drugs. And it was the first time that I felt accepted and a sense of I can actually be peaceful and I can actually love myself and I can actually feel a level of contentment that goes way above anything that meth could give me. And so from that point on, I worked with I joined that sort of that community where we use plant medicine and we continue to integrate the learnings that we get from these experiences, but all kind of work together to improve our lives. There are some other people in recovery in that community, but it's not all about coming in and saying, you know, I'm an addict and I can't believe, you know, I'm facing this, I want to use and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't all about that. It was just all about leaning in for each other and helping one another heal in whatever way that they felt they needed to heal or whatever way made them live a better life. And so mine just happened to be getting through this through my addiction.
So the thing is, I am completely ignorant to that ayahuasca stuff. So
Hmm.
so the thing is this something that you did a few times until, as you said, the veil was broken down, or
Hmm.
is this something that you continue to do yearly throughout your recovery?
Yes. So, I mean, some people will do it once and they're fine, you know. So the first year, I actually went to a retreat ceremony 3 times. And then since then, it's been about once a year that I go. The community, I meet with the community other times and we all stay in touch. We all kind of help one another through whatever it is that we're going through, but I just choose to go back about once a year. Some people can go to an ayahuasca retreat, and many times they're in out of the country, like Peru or somewhere like that. This happens to be pretty local to me, so I have more access. Um, but you know, some people will have one experience and be just fine with that. I prefer to kind of make it a lifestyle, you know, and just to go back and kind of go back with a new sense of whatever has been healed and whatever I've built on, and then just and have the retreat, have the experience, and then and build some more.
So with the ayahuasca, like, have you received pushback from the recovery community due to you doing that?
Yes. um, I share my story a lot, and I share what everything that's really going on in my sobriety. I share online through social media, and I've had many people approach me about sharing my story at their meetings. But then when I tell them that part, or when I say that I'm not involved in a program, then they immediately say, I'm sorry, then you can't tell your story. Um, I don't, sometimes it's pushed back in terms of like people, these keyboard warriors will go online and start telling me that you're not really sober then because that's a mind altering psychedelic. Um, So I have received that pushback. And then the other pushback is just, you're not following the doctrine. So we can't really hear your story. If you want to come to the meeting, you can, but you know, don't talk about that.
So I think that's going to be so important for me to kind of like disclaimer is the thing is everybody's recovery journey is going to be very, very, very different from each other. Same thing with like marijuana maintenance. That is very debatable subject within the community as well. So the thing is, just because somebody else's journey looks different than yours does not mean that it is done incorrectly. It does not mean that the individual is not sober. It does not mean any of that. So the thing is like there's people that their addiction was meth and they drink here and there occasionally, but yet they're not doing meth for 20 years. So it's like to them, that person that they're sober from meth. So the thing is like don't ever discount or make somebody feel bad because the thing is the moment you, as you said, become a keyboard warrior and try to belittle or make somebody's sobriety not feel authentic to them, that could eventually lead them back to a drug that they
Yeah.
fought so hard to get away from, which could lead quickly to an overdose. I mean, there's overdoses. I was in the funeral industry, and there's overdoses happening every single day. So the thing is like if you feel opinionated and feel that their recovery journey is wrong or feel that it's not yours or different than yours, just shut up about it.
Right.
Like honestly, because their recovery journey does not affect your own recovery journey.
Right.
Yours it's all so different. So I want to make sure to preface that. And the thing is like me, I'm personally I'm in a 12-step program. And the thing is yes, as the program teaches us, they teach it very against like maintenance, as you would say, like medicinal maintenance. But personally, to me, that's why I brought this platform of the Sober Unicorn, is because everybody has a short story to share. And no, just because your recovery does not look like mine, you should never be denied the opportunity to speak up and share your story. So, anyways, we'll get past that disclaimer. So anybody that's being a judgy Judy, don't don't say shit. So
Right.
in your recovery, I would say, other than like the obvious, which is getting your kids back and getting out of homelessness, what has been the best gift you've received by just being on this journey?
Mhm. So I would say the best gift I've received is being able to peel back the layers and understand what brought me to addiction in the first place, um, and peeling back the layers to understand what was going on addiction wise before crystal meth. But in understanding those things and understanding the trauma and the limiting beliefs and all of this stuff that had been given to me, I've been able to find a way to love myself and in a true like strong commitment way. You know, I'm committed to me, and I know in this very confident way who I am. And the thing is that I'm not looking for connection outside of me is great, but it's not something that I seek anymore because I'm connected to myself. Very aware of my body. I'm very aware of my mind, and I've just become this really strong observer of me, and that's worth all of everything that I went through. And not to mention becoming the father that I've always wanted to be, and seeing my kids really take off and be strong adults, and and balanced adults, you know, and not in the place that I was at when they were their age. So sobriety has just brought me a sense of clarity, you know, and a sense of calmness, that I don't feel this anxiety anymore. I don't feel this yearning to be something else than
And I know that you are like very active on social media. So what kind of I was reading your profile bio and it says coach. So what exactly are you coaching and who do you enjoy coaching?
Yeah. So I started out, I knew I wanted to be a life coach. And I looked at my life, and of course, sobriety is a big part of that. And so I decided to try to be a sobriety coach. And what I want to do is help, especially gay men who are coming out of a crystal meth addiction. And again, I don't. It's not that narrow. I don't only coach gay men with crystal meth addictions, but that happens to be all of my clients right now. um, but they've come out of the addiction, but they still can't seem to let it go, or they still can't seem to acclimate into life, and especially around sex too. Um, Trying to find intimacy, trying to enjoy sex again, and thinking that it's going to be boring. It's getting away from pornography. I mean, these are all these really really heavy issues that honestly a lot of therapists and other coaches who haven't experienced crystal meth can't truly relate to. And so that's what I want to is provide a safe container for these men so that they can feel heard and seen and understood and validated in the fact that they don't want to have sex with their partner because it's not the way they like to have sex, you know, but making that transition, and not only sexually, but it's everything. It's the boring nature of life. It's work. It's how do you acclimate into a job, but how do you get to a point where you stop completely too? Because there's just a lot of men, and I didn't really know this until I got into coaching, but there's a lot of men who still dabble with it once in a while. They still have that craving, and that's how they maintain relationships, is that they still have that in the back of their pocket so that they can kind of scratch that itch once in a while. And they don't want to. They come to me because they want to figure out what is what is driving that repeated pattern, what is making them have that craving, but not only have the craving but act on it, and how can they get rid of that part of their life. And so that's kind of what my coaching has been so far. I just kind of threw it out there to see what would stick and how I could help. That's how I'm helping right now. I think when it comes down to it, when I talk to other people who are interested in coaching too, is that addiction is addiction. So I can help people with reframe relapse, or talk about cravings, or kind of dig into their inner child and figure out what trauma is going on there that's making them go to addiction. But when you have experienced a crystal meth life, there's just something about having someone who has been there, who knows what it's like to talk to, and that relatability makes a big difference.
That was, I mean, that is very true because, as you said, I don't think anybody outside of that can really relate. Because for me, crystal meth is not only an addiction, but to me, it's actually a culture that has been built within our community. I'm not saying it's only within the gay community. This is just my experiences, but it's kind of ingrained. I know I had a roommate, and he was a gay man that, of course, substance abuse, and he was like, but it's not meth. Like, he literally had to justify that it was substance abuse wasn't meth because he's like, I know everybody that's gay seems to be on meth these days. And it's like it's insane how we have to justify that, say if you're not a meth user and gay, that you have to, like, oh, I'm not gay, because that's, I guess, everybody's automatic assumption. And kind of, I can understand the struggle of learning, like, kind of how to have sex again, because
Yeah.
the moment these cravings of sex come up, that's when I find myself indulging into pornography that's not very, I would say, spiritual, but not very good. That's when the thoughts of downloading Grinder come back in, and because
Yeah.
sex and meth for many people were very hand in hand for many years, so it's like having to pull back, learn my self worth, not give myself away freely sexually. Finally has allowed me. I just got messaged the other day by an old hookup, that he doesn't do meth, but it was like, well, come over. And I'm like, no. He's
Yeah.
like, well, why not? I'm like, I'm not giving this away for free anymore. I was
Right.
like, I'm learning my self worth. Like, why did you take me to dinner? Like,
Yeah.
why don't we hang
Yeah.
outside? Like, you talk about wanting to have a friendship, but I said, our friendship has not gone outside of the bedroom. So
Yeah.
why don't you get to know me as an individual outside of the actual like sexual conquest? So yeah, meth. I mean, for anybody that may be suffering from meth addiction and sex kind of hand in hand. Like for me, I had to 100% step back from sex in
Yeah.
order to learn that romantic side again and learn the sensual, I would say, side of things rather than being beastly
Mhm.
when you're tied up in having sex. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so of course you're
Yeah.
coaching. If anybody like wants to reach out to you for coaching or even just follow your social media, like where do they find that at?
Instagram is Dr. Dallas Bragg, the Dr. Dallas Bragg. I was able, thank God, I was able to finish my doctorate right before I started my active addiction. Um, Facebook is Dallas Bragg, and those are the two main outlets that I have. I have TikTok, but I'm not sure to tell you how to get me on TikTok. I'm still trying to figure TikTok out. But yeah, I mean, and there's a wide a range of things that we can do, and that I'm getting ready to launch. So there's a reframing relapse, like 4 week, 28-day journal program that we're going to have. Because the, what I'd like to see is people not starting over, quote unquote, when they relapse, is using that as a springboard and a time to learn and understand, and just doing away with the guilt and the shame, and I have to start over at day one, but really leaning into what exactly happened, what can I learn from this, what's left here that's causing me to relapse. And so there's a 28-day program that I've created to kind of walk you through that, so that you can use relapse, and not be overwhelmed by the fact that you don't have to start over at day one. You're still on your sobriety journey, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know I've been seeing some TikToks that are kind of just in the discussion of the same thing where just because you slipped up or relapsed doesn't mean you have to start back at day one. Again, that's a very controversial topic in the form of recovery. But to
Yeah,
me, recovery is a lifelong journey. So, I mean,
right.
if you are a person that wants to count sobriety days, that is 100% up to you. Or if you're a person that says, my journey started this time, and that's how you want to look at it, whether you had to slip up in between those times, that's completely fine as well. At the end of the day, as long as you obtain the same goal of just being a happier, healthier, and better you, it shouldn't matter how many times you relapse until you got there, as long as you got to that goal. Because crystal meth, like I believe the statistics are 2% of people stay clean from crystal meth. So the thing is it is a very, very small percentage. So just
That's
because you slipped up, like I had to slip up after 9.5 months of recovery, like that doesn't mean you failed.
right.
First and foremost, I mean, I use that, like as you said, a springboard. That was a huge learning um,
Yes.
thing for me, and I've been using that in my own recovery. And I just hit 5 months a few days ago, and like what's so weird is I am so much more proud of the time that I have currently than
Mm,
what I was doing before. Because before I was lying my way through shit. I was
mm.
like craving every day. I was just pretty much kind of abstinent from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
drugs and alcohol. But
yeah,
now it's like
yeah.
I'm actually taking the time to work on myself,
That's
on my
right.
self care, my mental health, and so it's very different this time around. So I mean,
Good.
just because you relapsed or slipped up does not mean that you failed. It does not mean that the recovery journey you've been on has been lost. It's everything's kind of a learning curve.
Right. Yes. I agree.
So thank you. But was it well before we end the episode? Is there anything that you haven't said that you would like to tell everybody?
Well, I would just like to say back to the counting of the days and everything is that we've accepted a certain way to operate sobriety, and it worked at one time. But what I'd like to say to someone who continues to relapse or wants to try to get sober is that if you use one less day this week than you did last week, or your 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 binge this time only lasted 1 week and not 2 weeks, it's an improvement. You know, it's just setting a mindset so that you're not overwhelmed by the possibility of never using again is such a better, if you can just set a goal to say, I'm not using today, that goes back to, just for today or whatever, one day at a time. But if you can set smaller goals and just reframe the way you're looking at zoom out and reframe the way you're looking at the whole journey, I feel like people are going to be more successful in the long run then we're seeing that 2% could be a lot higher if we're change the way that we think about what sobriety means and what it means to be sober.
And I think now that we live in the 21st century and social media is the way it is, I feel that the number will progressively get better just because there are podcasts to listen to, there are Instagram, there are TikToks that you can reach out. Anybody in recovery, no matter what platform you find them on, will be happy to talk to you if you just
Oh
reach out
yeah,
to them.
yeah,
Nobody, I've never found a single person in recovery that has been like, nah, fuck you in your recovery. Like anybody is just elated that you're even reaching out. And like I
yeah.
said, everybody's journey is different. So I mean, if anybody's been listening for multiple episodes, if your journey is not like mine and that's why you haven't reached out, that's okay. Find an episode and a guest that you more relate to and reach out to them. Many of our guests here have dropped their social medias and stuff like that. So anyway, so I do appreciate you, Dallas, for coming on and joining me, especially last minute. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.